We're starting off with the most important step, which is creating a delicious, flavorful broth. We're using 3 main ingredients for this broth. We have onion, we have radish, and we also have dried kelp. So dried kelp is going to give us that umami flavor, and it's going to replace anchovies that is traditionally used in the traditional tteokguk. The radish I'm using is a Korean radish. Now, I'm not sure if there's a big difference between Korean and Japanese daikon radish, but I think it's pretty much the same. I'm not sure, but I'm using the Korean radish, also known as mu in Korean. So I just chopped off a big piece of the radish and I'm just peeling it, and I'm going to cut it up roughly, and we're going to use that to flavor our broth. I really believe that the radish is a key ingredient in this broth, so please try not to skip that step. Next, I'm just going to cut a medium-sized onion in half. We're going to leave the skin on for this. Then we are going to take some dried kelp. Now this you can find online or you can find in your local Korean supermarket. Korean people love using kelp, also known as dashima, in our broths to flavor them. So in a large pot, we're going to add 6 cups of water. And guys, if you need the measurements and all of the ingredients and the written recipe, as always, it's in a blog post, and I'm going to link that down below. So with the water, we're going to add in those ingredients that we prepared, and then we're going to bring this to a boil. Once this comes to a very strong boil, I'm going to turn this down to the low heat. I'm going to cover it up, and I'm going to let it simmer for about 45 minutes to an hour. You could probably get away with just 30 minutes, but I really wanted to make this broth absolutely delicious and flavorful, and it was worth the wait. While the broth is coming together, we can prep the other ingredients. And what I love in this dish is tofu. So I'm going to take some medium firm tofu. You can also use soft tofu. You can even use firm tofu. It doesn't really matter. But I'm going to take medium firm tofu, which I think works beautifully, and cut it up into small cubes. Now what I do, guys, is actually I prepare all the ingredients for 1 serving here. So basically the broth is the base, and then you can make the ingredients according to however many servings you would like. And then I'm adding 1 tablespoon of soy sauce or tamari if you're gluten-free, and also half a tablespoon of sesame oil, and we're going to mix that well. Next, we're going to chop some green onions. Now I'm starting with 2, but you'll see that I keep just adding more and more. And I just took the heads and I just threw them into the broth because, you know, why not? Add some more flavor. So I chopped them like so into these long pieces, and then we're going to chop them sideways. This is a method my mom taught me. I don't know what this is called, but that's the method I'm using. So we're just chopping them up into thin pieces. And I think I ended up using 4 stalks of green onions total because I used 1 for garnish. So 3 for the actual soup, and that's for 1 serving. But my green onions were quite thin and quite small, so you could probably use about 2 regular sized green onion stalks for 1 serving. Anyways, now we're taking some dried roasted seaweed. This is different from kelp. This is nori or kim in Korean, and you can cut it up with scissors to make it look pretty, or you can just crumble it up like so. As you can see, I really like a lot of seaweed and a lot of green onion for this dish, and trust me guys, you probably want a lot of both as well. So once the broth is done, you can have a look, maybe have a little taste, and see how rich and flavorful it is. It is so delicious, guys. I'm telling you, you must try this. The amount of broth we made is probably good for about 2 to 3 servings. Now, if you want to make those 2 to 3 servings immediately, you can just take all of the solids out and just do this step. But because I only wanted to make 1 individual serving, I'm just going to separate it into a different pot. So I added 2 cups of broth into a smaller pot. Now, I ended up adding a little bit more broth later on. So I would say per individual serving, about 2 to 2.5 cups of broth. Then I'm going to add that tofu that we made earlier. Then we're going to add all those green onions. You might want to save a little bit for garnish. And we have these rice cakes. Now these are the flat shaped rice cakes. You can find this in your local Korean or Asian supermarket. I would look in the refrigerator section or the freezer section. Maybe show them, this video, because if they're Korean, they'll know exactly what this is. I really hope you guys can find these because it's so good, okay? Now, this part is optional, but I'm adding some Korean veggie dumplings into the soup as well. Most Korean supermarkets should have some vegan-friendly veggie dumplings in the freezer section, so try to find them if you can because they do go really great with this soup. Now we're going to bring this to a nice boil while stirring once in a while to make sure that it doesn't stick to the bottom. Now the way that you can know that the rice cakes have cooked is either by tasting them to see how chewy they are and if it's soft enough, or allowing them to float to the top. So if the rice cakes float to the top, that means it is ready and you can eat them. So it's now coming to a pretty strong boil, so I decided to give it a little taste and see how it is and see how much longer I wanted to cook them. Once I was satisfied with the rice cakes, I'm adding in a half tablespoon more of soy sauce or tamari and also a little bit more of sesame oil as well, about a teaspoon. Then we're just gonna mix that well. And of course, guys, this is your soup. Give it a taste. See how it is. If you want to add more soy sauce or sesame oil, absolutely feel free to do so. For me, it really was the perfect amount of flavor, so now we're ready to put it into a bowl and almost ready for serving. And now we are going to top with some of that seaweed. So I like to also keep some of the seaweed on the side as well and just add a little more as I eat this bowl. Because I don't know, I really like it that way. I think it tastes better when I do that. So that's what I would recommend. And that is how you make a vegan version of tteokguk. You can also add in some more green onions for garnish and for extra freshness and deliciousness. And you have to have this with kimchi. Kimchi is a Korean traditional dish. It is fermented cabbage. It is delicious. I have a vegan recipe for this on my channel, which I'll link down below. It is so good with kimchi. This whole thing is just so delicious. I highly recommend trying this out if you can find the ingredients. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Remember, the written recipe is linked down below. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to grab yourself that vegan bundle. Link is down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!